Welcome back to another video, guys. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you storyline and structure and how we control the storyline at each structure point. Okay, so please, by all means, do not share this. You're just going to hurt yourself. Once things get caught onto, then they stop working, right? So don't share this. Keep this to yourself. This is going to make you possibly some money. I can't say it will because that's illegal for me to say that, but it possibly could make you a way better trader. So again, trading's risky. Don't trade with live funds unless you're ready. You can and you may lose money or whatever the terms are. Okay, that's a disclaimer. But please don't share this. I'm actually very hesitant on sharing this, but I trust that you guys will keep this safe and secret. Okay, so this is probably something that's going to help you with the missing piece of your trading. It's most likely it's going to transform it. So, study this very hard and back test the living shit out of it. Okay. But again, I'm very reluctant on sharing this. So this is a special treat. I haven't taught this to anybody, and this isn't my own technique. This was learned from many great traders, and you probably won't find this in English. So let's begin. Okay, so here we have resistance monthly, resistance weekly, resistance daily, support weekly, support monthly. Okay, so let's begin where our storyline starts. So let's say our storyline begins from support monthly and we trade up. Okay, now we have resistance monthly. Okay, now when we're trading on resistance monthly, our roadblocks are going to be the resistance daily, the support daily, support weekly, support monthly. These are all going to be roadblocks for price to reach the final point, point A to point B. And once we complete here, this is our new point A. Okay, this will be storyline completed. So what happens when price trades from resistance monthly to support daily? I'll give you a second to think. If we respect the support daily, we're going to find resistance daily. Okay. If price decides to break through, daily is control of weekly. So we'll find resistance weekly. If we find resistance weekly, then we should be looking for support weekly. If we respect support weekly, then we'll find resistance weekly, whatever the new resistance is. So if this weekly doesn't respect and then creates a lower high, it'll be the next resistance weekly, but let's not get that far yet. Okay, so for example, right here, resistance daily, if it respects it, okay, if it respects resistance daily and we break, where's our next point? It can be support weekly or it can be support monthly. Okay, let's say it respects support weekly, then obviously we're going to find resistance weekly. Okay, so we're using the time frames to find the storyline. If we find support at weekly, then we must find resistance at weekly. Okay, but in between the support weekly and the resistance weekly, we have daily roadblocks inside that we need to pay attention to see if they respect or not. Okay, now let's say support weekly to resistance weekly, that's complete, then we're pretty much clear to go down to support monthly. Our next target should be monthly. Okay, because weekly is controlled with monthly, and if weekly is breaking structure, then we must find support monthly for our overall storyline. Okay. Now we need to talk about which structures are in control of each other. So in control of monthly, we have weekly structure. In control of weekly structure, we have daily structure. In control of daily structure, we have H4 structure. In control of H4 structure, we have H1 structure. In control of H1 structure, we have M15. M15 structure, we have M5 and M1 structure, okay? So for example, let's say price decides to trade from, let me delete this, from resistance weekly. How do we know if it's not just going to go back up to resistance monthly? Well, we need to see what's in control of weekly, right? What's in control of weekly is daily. So if we can pretend that this is a daily structure, okay? Just mark it green for daily. So if we see, okay, cool, on the daily structure, it'll be more like this, right? Once we get to the high and we start seeing price breaking down, then we know resistance weekly from daily structure is showing that it's not respecting the weekly. I mean, it's respecting the weekly resistance. So our target should be support weekly, okay, with daily roadblocks. More on that later. But I just want you guys to understand the gist of this, because this is, it can get complicated until you get good at it. But it's very simple because it's just support and resistance. So here we have a break of structure. Okay. And then we have our QM level. And then we have our resistance on daily. Okay. This right here is called the SBR. SBR. And then there's RBS, which is support becomes resistance. Resist becomes support. Okay, that's all that means. Now, this right here, these patterns are only valid on the monthly, daily, monthly, weekly, and weekly and daily timeframes. We do not use this for H4, H1, M15, M5, M1. We don't use that, okay? Monthly, weekly, daily, direction only. H4 less is entry. Okay. So just keep this in mind. Put it over here. So looking at this, and we know that daily is coming and breaking down. So we understand from the weekly that daily is suggesting that price is going to not respect this level, okay? Is going to respect this level to find our next support, which is weekly, okay? So we should have in mind our storyline is from weekly to weekly, okay? Now, if that's the case, how do we get into a trade? So if price is coming down, let me adjust this. We need to pay attention to what happens here, okay, at the SBR. At the SBR on the daily time frame, how do we know if this is going to respect? We look at H4, okay? So on H4, if we see the same pattern where we have a break or something, so we can enter on H4 if, for example, we did something like this and did a QM, or if we just did something like this, okay? So on H4, there's only two ways to enter. is the QM level, setup, which you guys know, or support, or sorry, resistance. Okay, so for example, at this price point, how do we know it's not going to go to here? Or how do we know it's not going to go to here? Is we're using the lower time frame, we're using H4 to find out if there's going to be a setup here or a QM on H4 or just resistance, okay? Because we're not using SBR here. So our entries would be here if that was the pattern, okay? But how do we know if H4 is going to respect this resistance on H4? We use the lower time frame, use H1, and then find the same pattern again. How do we know if H1 is going to do that? We go another lower time frame, go to M15. So we're stacking. So basically what's happening is we're lining up the time frames. Okay, so we're going daily break, H4 break, H1 break, M15 break, M1, M5 break. Okay, but you don't need to go that far because typically you can just get a very sharp entry anyways. And in the next video that I release, we'll go over live chart examples of all this in action. Okay, so here, right, if this doesn't respect, it's going to find the QM. If the QM doesn't respect, it's going to find the resistance, the final resistance up here. And we're using lower time frames to control the structure. Now, how do I know if this, let's say this is a daily SBR, right? How do I know if this is going to respect? How do I know if I can hold a trade down to here? I need to find out where my breakout is, okay? I need to find my QM or just my break. Okay, so if I see on daily and then H4 just does this, then I know I can hold because structure is still breaking down. Now, if structure starts doing something like this, okay, that's just going to be a signal for me to just take my profit. So I'm not leaving money necessarily on the table. I'm protecting my risk because I see that new structure on lower time frame in our SBR area or RBS area has changed. Sorry, has changed, right? So I can just close out at a break of a new, lower high. And then I can also, let's say that happens and I want to hold the position for some reason, I can hedge that by taking the re-entry on H4 at the new support. Okay, so now I have the hedge going in both ways. Okay. If that fails, and then we're also using the lower time frame, right? So if we're using H4 support and resistance, if we're using H1 support and resistance, I can control each time frame. So if I'm seeing, oh, H1, we have a resistance. If H1 breaks, then I know H4 is the next zone that it's headed towards because H1 is in control of H4. Now, if H4 breaks, then I know we're going to daily resistance. Okay, and then at daily resistance, I can look on H4 to see if structure is going to change again and get another entry. Okay. I hope that's making sense. It's a little confusing when you first learn this, but I really do hope that is making some sense to you guys. Okay, so this is basically the gist of Storyline, and it's once you learn it, it's amazing. It's you can get sniper entries just like on H1, H4 levels without having to go down to the lower time frame. But you can still use those lower time frames if you want. Okay. So just remember how each point of structure at a storyline point, right? At a monthly or weekly resistance, we're just using a lower time frame to confirm that action. And as it gets down to a roadblock area, we can either choose to hold it until we see structure shifting to break out. So if it comes from here and then we have breakout structure, then we can take a reentry on that trade or close our initial trade that was up here. But we need to find each level. So for example, if price came down into here, okay, after completing this, and let's say we got another entry here or something, and price came here, right? Where is my next daily resistance? So I can look here for my next daily resistance. Okay, so if I'm respecting, let's just call this a weekly SPR, and then daily is showing that, sorry, if this was a daily SPR that we traded to, and then H4 is showing that it wants to move on up, H4 break structure, where is it going to find? It's going to find the daily resistance. Then we understand that, okay, I can possibly, if I got an entry somewhere up here or something, I can possibly still hold this trade. So for example, if this was up here, okay, and we can just say that this is like a wick tapping into the QM level. And we got an entry on like H4, right? So this is a daily, and let's say we got H4 entry or H1 entry right here, and then price breaks down, trades down to our daily SPR or RBS, and then we see H4 breaking structure. H4 is most likely headed to the new daily high, right? So wherever your new daily high is, so for example, if this was like this, okay, and we understand that our entry came from here on the lower time frame. Okay, so if our entry came here, and then now this is our new daily high right here, which is our new daily resistance. And then we have an H4 break. H4 is doing what? H4 is in control of daily, so it's going to the daily resistance. So we can still hold our entry here and then look for breakout again on H4 to take another entry. And now that we have seen that H4 is breaking, we understand that this level here isn't going to hold anymore. And we can take it down to the next resistance level. Okay, so that's how you control your entries and your exits properly, and how to not leave money on the table. Okay, now again, that's if you have the courage to hold these trades, right? Because obviously anything can happen and price can just fly and just take you out or whatnot. But based on structure and storyline, it's very unlikely. So what you want to do is, once you understand storyline, you're not going to be fearful of holding trades anymore, okay? Because you understand, like, hey, I understand where price is most likely headed, and I know how to exit this. I know how to control my risk, because now we're shifting structure. Now I can choose, since we're shifting structure, what is the structural point, or I mean the storyline point that we're most likely headed to. And if we are headed there, I can possibly get another entry in stack positions. Or structure shifting and it's too close to my entry, I'm just going to exit. Okay, so it's very, very simple to understand where you're at in the storyline of price along with structure to confirm each level, okay, until you get down to the completed storyline, and then everything restarts. I hope that made sense. And again, please don't share this, guys.